Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this video, my plan is to read for you a few passages that I have selected from this nice book on time management. The title of the book is 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, and it is written by Oliver Burkeman. Burkeman has two other books already published. One is called The Antidote, Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking. And the second one is called Help, How to Become Slightly Happier and Get a Bit More Done. I haven't read those two other books, but I just finished reading this one and I liked it, with a few qualifications which I'll add at the end of the video. But in general, I enjoyed the book. I think it is a good book. If you are interested in time management, productivity, getting more things done, having a more reflective, mindful relationship with time, with how you spend your time, how you divide your time, how you express your life over time, it's worthwhile. What sets this book apart from common self-help guides is that it doesn't provide answers to common questions. So instead of taking the common, frequently asked questions about productivity and time management, Burkeman instead questions those desires and scrutinizes, puts under scrutiny our desire for perfect time management, for wanting to constantly set goals and accomplish goals. So he kind of sees those desires as surface level symptoms of deeper problems. So how do we think at a deep level? What is a problem or our patterns of thinking at a deeper level that gives rise to these symptoms on the superficial level? And is it possible for us to find ways of thinking about time that don't cause these problems, worries, discomforts with time management? All right, so let's start reading. At the heart of this, his arguments, Burkeman's argument, is the idea that we should recognize that this desire, the wish to have perfect time management, to execute countless plans, and to have, accomplish superhuman goals in a lifetime. This is at its heart a desire to deny the real limitations of finite human life. So we should be aware of that. Because this desire for perfect time management, for perfect accomplishment, for superhuman accomplishment, because that involves a denial, the more we engage with it, the more uncomfortable we will be, the unhappier we will get. So let's start reading. So this three first passages are about the topic of just thinking about time. How do we think about time? And what does that reveal about us? The details differ from person to person, but the kernel is the same. We recoil from the notion that this is it, that this life, with all its flaws and inescapable vulnerabilities, its extreme brevity, and our limited influence over how it unfolds, is the only one we will get a shot at. So this is something that we should learn to stop resisting, the discomfort with this life being the only one that we live, and stop searching for something beyond it, something more than this life, with all its vulnerabilities and limitations. The second passage. Our troubled relationship with time arises largely from this same effort to avoid the painful constraints of reality, and most of our strategies for becoming more productive make things worse because they are really just ways of furthering the avoidance. All right, the next passage is about how our mistaken thinking, the way we think about the problematic thinking about time, is also related to our problematic ways of thinking about our relationships with other people. So we should try to not only improve how we think about time, but in relation to that, complementary to that, we should also be mindful and try to improve the way we think about our relationships and the place of our relationships in how we live. So, the third passage. Most of us seek a specifically individualistic kind of mastery over time. So I want to be the master over my time. You want to be the master over your own schedule. Our culture's ideal is that you alone should control your schedule, doing whatever you prefer whenever you want, because it's scary to confront the truth that almost everything worth doing, from marriage to parenting to business or politics, depends on cooperating with others, and therefore on exposing yourself to the emotional uncertainties of relationships. Okay, so those were general quotes from relatively early on in the book, where the discussion is general ways of thinking about time and how our general thoughts about time give rise to our questions about time management. Now we are turning to distraction, sources of distraction, and how we can think differently about distractions. Burkeman here challenges the belief that distractions only come from outside and that maybe we should feel helpless while we face these carefully, perfectly designed technologies that are distracting us constantly. So should we feel helpless against these external sources of distraction? So he challenges that, and he links distractibility with our own desire to escape reality again. So because we want to escape reality, we are looking for distractions. Let's read. Consider the archetypal case of being lured from your work by social media. It's not usually that you're sitting there concentrating rapturously when your attention is dragged away against your will. In truth, you're eager for the slightest excuse to turn away from what you're doing in order to escape how disagreeable it feels to be doing it. You slide away to the Twitter pylon or the celebrity gossip site with a feeling not of reluctance but of relief. We are told that there is a war for our attention with Silicon Valley as the invading force. But if that's true, our role on the battlefield is often that of collaborators with the enemy. The next passage, again about distractions. What we think of as distractions aren't the ultimate cause of our being distracted. They are just the places we go to seek relief from the discomfort of confronting limitation. This next passage is probably my favorite passage from the whole book. Let's read it. The most effective way to sap distraction of its power is just to stop expecting things to be otherwise, to accept that this unpleasantness is simply what it feels like for finite humans to commit ourselves to the kinds of demanding and valuable tasks that force us to confront our limited control over how our lives unfold. This unpleasantness is simply what it feels like for finite humans to commit ourselves to these tasks that are valuable, demanding, and we don't have full control over it, how they unfold. All right, related to this, we now switch to the topic of boredom. Let's read. This is why boredom can feel so surprisingly, aggressively unpleasant. We tend to think of it as merely a matter of not being particularly interested in whatever it is we are doing. But in fact, it's an intense reaction to the deeply uncomfortable experience of confronting your limited control. Boredom can strike in widely differing contexts, but they all have one characteristic in common. They demand that you face your finitude. You're obliged to deal with how your experience is unfolding in this moment, to resign yourself to the reality that this is it. All right, I had to select this next passage because it is about reading, and as you know, I am interested in both the activity of reading and the topic of reading. So it has implications. Reading is a perfect example of a place where the activity doesn't go according to our desired speed. It dictates its own pace. Let's read. People complain that they no longer have time to read. But the reality, as the novelist Tim Parks has pointed out, is rarely that they literally can't locate an empty half hour in the course of a day. What they mean is that when they do find a morsel of time and use it to try to read, they find they are too impatient to give themselves over to the task. It is not simply that one is interrupted, writes Parks. It is that one is actually inclined to interruption. It's not so much that we are too busy or too distractible, but that we are unwilling to accept the truth that reading is the sort of activity that largely operates according to its own schedule. All right, we are now covering the last, maybe the most important topic related to time management, related to how we relate to time, what we want from time. And this is the topic of purpose, purpose of living, and the purpose of the tasks that we try to accomplish. We treat everything we are doing, life itself, in other words, as valuable only insofar as it lays the groundwork for something else. So we are treating everything instrumentally. We want not the thing itself that we are doing, but we want the results of it. We want the exchange value of it, what it brings us later on, not its own intrinsic value. Because children grow up, we think a child's purpose is to grow up, Herzen says. But a child's purpose is to be a child. Nature doesn't disdain what only lives for a day. It pours the whole of itself into each moment. Life's bounty is in its flow. And that's it. Now, the only criticism that I have of this book, about the author's way of writing it, is with the last two chapters. So chapters 13 and 14, and then the afterword, which is titled Beyond Hope. Something really strange happens after we read the first 12 chapters, which are really great. The first 12 chapters, I really enjoyed. I was very impressed. It was quite philosophical. But in chapters 13 and 14, Burkeman reverts back to using the voice of a self-help author, somebody who's giving advice, somebody who's less interested in understanding and more interested in practical solutions. And to me, if I may use a musical metaphor, it's kind of like somebody who sets out to write a piece of music in an atonal register, like not in a major key or a minor key, but in a new way, without tonality, atonal. But then at the end of the musical piece, he reverts back to writing a melody in C major key. So that doesn't clarify much what I mean. Writing self-help book is a different style of writing and relating both to reality and to the audience. And what is impressive and engaging and edifying and enlightening about Burkeman's project is that he goes deeper than that. But that depth is left behind, and we get back to the style of self-help in those three last parts of the book. And I don't know why that happened. Maybe that was based on a suggestion from the editor or from the publisher. I don't know, but it was really beautiful and inspiring and impressive until the end of chapter 12. I really enjoyed the book. So that was just my only critical moment or critical feedback note on the book. I didn't like that regression to self-help, to the genre of self-help. Otherwise, it's a good book and it's worthwhile. All right, if you have read the book, if you have read other books about time management that you would recommend, feel free to share them below. Otherwise, I'll speak with you in future videos.